I just want to come back to the mindset stuff a little bit because, working at the coalface of this, there's challenges for people who want to do something, but they feel so overwhelmed in so many aspects of their life, and, a lot of people have got children and, older family to look after and work responsibilities. And how do you balance the overwhelm of life? Because we all have that kind of overwhelm. How do you balance that with being able to come home and think about eating and nourishing yourself in a way that you're taking care of yourself? You talked before about only thinking about food as calories, not really quality. But are there any other thoughts that you have about?
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one for me to answer for anybody, because when I think to my personal circumstances, they're a little unique. I live alone, so any issue of some people trying to lose weight on low carb, for example, might be struggling with other family members who aren't on that particular journey with them, and that's something that I can't personally relate to because I live alone. But coming down to the very basics of the argument, and I sort of think back to when the guy at the gym was trying to encourage me to take low carb seriously. One of the key points that he said to me was, well, the alternative is to just keep doing what you're doing and look how well that's working for you, right? So your trajectory, and he was right about that. I could see that for myself. I could feel that for myself. Where I was going at that time was nowhere good. And he was saying it's you've got to change something. You've got to try. You've got to change something up, because if you don't, you can see where you're heading, and that's not a place where you want to be. Which in my case was pretty much one foot in the grave at my worst. So that sort of really starts to hit home when I sort of started thinking about it at that fundamental level. Do I want to be here or do I not? How important are these other smaller day-to-day issues if you're not going to be around? What good's a reward if you're not around to use it, as Han Solo said in Star Wars. There's the nerd side of me coming back into it. But yeah, it's not being afraid, I think, to try something new. And perhaps what compounds that or what makes that difficult is that often what is suggested to us is so contrary to what we've been taught beforehand. But you still weigh that up against where you are now, and regardless of how much of the right advice and all the right instructions you're taking from all the right people, if it's just not working and something else has the potential to work, then sooner or later, there's that decision to make. Do I do what I'm told to do, or do I do what actually works? And as much as we would all like to believe, no matter what your persuasion is, as much as we'd all like to believe that those two things are always going to be the same, sometimes they're just not. And so, what really counts for someone in my position is those results and my experience from those results. It's not that I set out to be a contrarian by choice. I would have loved, nobody would have been happier than me had the standard advice actually worked for me back in the day. Unfortunately, it just never did. And it took me, decades to come around to the idea of decoupling those two things, that we can either choose what we're told to do or we can go with what works. And I had to try that to discover that it would work. I wasn't sure. I didn't, in fact, believe that it would. Thinking I would prove this guy wrong, and it turned out that I was the one who was wrong all along. There's a lot to be learned there, potentially by people just challenging themselves in that way, but at the same time also not being afraid to seek help in whatever way they need. So if there's one thing that I regret about my journey, it was that I did it alone, and I could very easily have gotten it wrong. I just happened to, for better or worse, have pretty much nailed it. But, to not be afraid to get that help from someone who, can support you along that journey, and to help enable you to try this thing that you're perhaps, not so sure about. And if you can get some professional support along the way, I'd wager that it would be a much easier ride for you as you go.